there, why prioritizing motherhood in the first 3 years matters. And I'm here today to talk to you about when to introduce your children to reading and math skills. There's a tremendous focus today on cognitive development, or left brain development. That means pushing children to read and do math at a very young age. And even though those skills are critically important for life, pushing those skills too early can backfire. What we understand today, based on many years of research, is that right brain development or social emotional development is the foundation for left brain or cognitive development. And what is the difference between right brain and left brain functioning, or social emotional versus cognitive brain development? Social emotional development focuses on things like resilience to stress, emotional regulation, the ability to relate to others, the ability to read social cues in others, basically to get along in life in all kinds of relationships and to be able to balance or regulate your emotions. That is the most critical function of being a human being. Next comes cognitive development, things like logic, reasoning, reading, writing, math. But we really want to encourage parents to develop social emotional development first in children. Social emotional development teaches children to tolerate frustration. And when we learn things like math and reading and logic, there's a certain amount of frustration involved. So we really want to promote social emotional development early on. Think of the analogy of socks and shoes. I always say that encouraging cognitive development or reading and writing at too early an age is like putting your shoes on before your socks, knowing that your socks is social emotional development. We always want to put our socks on before our shoes. So social emotional development, or allowing children in the first 3 years to play and be playful and use imaginary play, is critical as a foundation for cognitive development. There are a number of things to keep in mind when determining when it's the right time to introduce reading and writing and math to your children. The first thing to keep in mind is that the first 3 years are the most important period of right brain or social emotional development. So this is the time when you want to spend a great deal of time with your children, promoting things like play and interacting with your children through play, really not pushing them too hard in the first 3 years, with anything but just what is organic to children, which is spending time with you, affectionate time with you, and play. Okay. The second thing to remember when determining how early you should introduce things like reading and writing and math is that when we encourage cognitive development or reading, things like flashcards or little Einstein or teaching children math too early, meaning under the age of 3, we're really showing our children that we overvalue their achievements. This causes children a great deal of stress at a young age, even though they may seem excited about pleasing you when you teach them these things like reading, and they get excited to show you how much that you've taught them and how they want your approval with this. No matter how excited they may seem, it also causes them a great deal of stress, because when they can't learn these things, and many children cannot learn reading and writing and math before the age of 3, it causes them a great deal of stress. Now that stress can also backfire, because even though they may be able to accomplish what you're asking of them, they may be able to live up to those expectations. At some point, when they can't live up to those expectations, they will not have had enough of that emotional security to really deal with the frustration, and sometimes that can cause a breakdown later in childhood. The third point I want you to think about is that emotional regulation, or that comes from social emotional development. Basically, every time you are present for your children and you comfort them or soothe them or help them through a moment of frustration with your presence, it actually helps to develop a resilience to stress and an ability to tolerate frustration. So we don't want to take all frustration away from children, but we do want to offer them little bits of frustration along the way and be there to help them regulate the frustration and their emotions. that emotional regulation lays the foundation for learning later on. For instance, a puzzle. Even though a child can put together a puzzle at a very young age, even under the age of 3, that puzzle can get harder and harder to put together as the puzzle gets more complicated. And if a child has had that good social emotional background, they're more able to deal with the frustration of not being able to put the puzzle together. Another point to remember is that if you're patient with your child will learn these cognitive skills. Cognitive development is organic, and it follows emotional development if you allow it to. And a curious mind comes from a creative mind, and we know that creativity comes from social emotional development. So in fact, that curiosity which leads to learning, as well as the ability to tolerate frustration, comes in good time. So be patient as a parent, and don't rush the process of pushing your children to read and do math at too early an age. Remember that when you emphasize one part of the brain, meaning when you push cognitive development too early, it always comes as a cost to other parts of the brain. And that happens in any kind of development, meaning whenever you are developing physically or in any way you go through a developmental milestone and there's a push, there's another part of development that always comes at a cost. And so if you're going to push cognitive development too early, it's often at a cost to their emotional security and to the social emotional development. I'm Komisar, and this has been my video about when to introduce your children to reading and writing and math versus social emotional development. And if you like this video, please tune in to other of my videos on YouTube and/or Facebook.